G'day guys, this is Captainoob here, and I've got a pretty big announcement today. So from the video's title and thumbnail, you'll probably know what I'm going to be talking about in this video, but if you don't know, I've created another mod that has been released on all platforms. What this mod does is add 35 standalone legendary effects for you to add to your weapons for a little bit more fun, or just massive killing power, which is going to be quite fun to tinker around with, especially if you're in the end game. The legendary effect takes up a different slot to the standard vanilla or DLC legendary effect, so you'll be able to go ahead and mix and match between that, which is really cool. And also it's compatible with all the DLC weapons. The caveat of that is that obviously you're going to need all DLC weapons, so go ahead and buy them if you haven't already. I highly recommend them. I'm going to go ahead and explain each and every legendary mod that I've created. If you'd like to skip this bit and sort of find out for yourself, you can go ahead and do that. But for those who aren't, here we go. So here we are with a 10mm pistol, and I'll get to why it says kneecapping pistol in a bit. But for now, we'll just go over the legendary effects. So here we are, the two different slots, so you can go and mix and match like I said. Anyway, here we go. So the first legendary effect is Adamant, and it just makes you immune from stagger, which is pretty damn useful. Next up is Amplifying, which does 3 times damage if you have full health. This one is inspired from the B shield from the Borderlands 2 game, so it does that. So instead of actual full shields, you don't have shields in Fallout 4, it just does it on the health, which is nice. Next up, this is more of a joke one, or not an entirely serious one, but you can fire bloatfly maggots with this legendary effect. It comes with a greatly increased fire rate, so you can fire out a bunch of maggots everywhere. It's pretty gross, but pretty fun. Next up is the calculating one. This one slows down time when you're in combat and standing still. It does it for about 3 to 5 seconds or so, and this was inspired from the game Superhot, so if you're familiar with that, you can sort of play like that. Next up is cannonballing. So this one is a pretty self-explanatory one. It fires broadside at projectiles, which is going to be cannonballs, and it'll add heaps of damage and a little bit of splash damage for you, which is pretty nice. First up for the elemental effects that I've added in this one, this is Corrosive, and this will give you a little bit of corrosion damage and give you the ability to melt targets, kind of like a My Alert Queen, so it's pretty decent. Next up is the covert little legendary effect here, and it'll give you a 4 times sneak multiplier, so it's great for actually getting some decent power out of your weaker weapons with sneak attack criticals. I'm looking at you, sniper rifle, so there you go, there's the covert effect. Next up is the critical, so this is for the luck intensive builds here, and this will reward you for doing criticals. Instead of the lucky, you get 3 times instead of 2 times, but it doesn't add to your critical bar more than lucky does. It's the crit damage multiplier on its own, so it's not overpowered, I suppose. Next up is Crystallize, and it fires Cryolator Crystallize projectiles, so makes the barrel that makes the Cryolator useful. We're going to be firing those projectiles, so they're going to have a snowball effect to them. Just don't fire them at your feet and you should be fine. Next up is the Disarming. This one's a little on the tamer side, but it gives you 25% chance to disarm. Obviously this is going to be great on automatic weapons, but there you have it. That's a pretty damn useful one if you're being outgunned, so there's that. Next up is the Efficient legendary effect, and this gives you 100% damage, so double damage at the cost of minus 50% fire rate. So basically what this weapon does is makes the best use out of your bullets. You could make better use out of it, but it's a little more efficient than your standard run-of-the-mill stuff, which is a pretty decent thing, especially if you have ammo constraints like survival and that. You'd be doing heaps of damage with an efficient weapon. Next up, we've got the second little elemental effect on this. It's the electrical. So this does electrocutes targets and disintegrates them on critical hits, which is a pretty decent perk. Next up, we've got God mode. This thing insta-kills anything that isn't marked as essential, because obviously you can't kill essential people. So this is basically if you're bored in the game and just want to kill everything in one hit. I don't recommend it because it'd take the fun out of the game, but there you go. Next up is the Hellfire little perk here. So basically what this does is it burns them, and it got a chance to flee, so that's pretty decent. Maybe if you're being outgunned there, you might find use for that. Just make a few targets flee, then take out the ones that aren't. Next up is the IR sights. So basically when you aim down sights with this weapon, you get the highlight target from the power armor, which is pretty neat. So if you've got a recon scope, I think it'd make a little bit more sense if you had that, but it still works with iron sights just fine. Next up is the inducted one, so it uses magnetic induction to propel projectiles like the good old Gauss rifle, and so it basically shoots Gauss rifle suppressed projectiles, which is going to add to its damage a little bit, as well as the stuff I've added in Creation Kit. Next up is the jacketed hollow point round. So basically this is just a sort of improvement across the board. It gives you the wounding effect and a little bit more base and critical damage and plus 50 fire rate, which is a pretty damn good deal. Next up, you've got Medicating. This is one of my favourite ones that I've made here. Not to toot my horn or anything, but this restores health and rads when you damage an enemy. So it's kind of like the Vampires effect where they absorb your health in Skyrim. It was quite easy to make because they run off the same engine. Next up, we've got the mini bomb rockets. This one fires rockets that explode with mini bombs. Every rocket that hits is going to send lots of frag grenades everywhere. So if you're in confined spaces, it's going to be a lot of explosions going off. Mr. Torg would be proud. Next up, another little elemental effect here. This is napalming. Basically, this was created to replace the obsolete incendiary effect. It'll look the same, but it'll just do a little bit better damage over time and for longer. So it's a little bit more longer lasting than wounding, but doesn't do as much damage. All over time anyway. So paralyzing, chance to paralyze targets, that's a pretty obvious one there. Pretty decent for taking out a high value target or taking them out of the game a bit as you take out their mates, but pretty situationally useful. You probably find use out of it. Next up is the parkour. His little perk here. It gives you twice jump height and movement speed, so it's a lot of fun to just jump around with this weapon in your hands or if it's equipped. Next up is the particle beam laser. So basically what this happens is changes the projectile to explosive laser beams, and the ammo is fusion cells. So if you're running low on 10mm bullets and you want this weapon to fire off your abundant supply of fusion cells, you can go ahead and put the particle beam legendary effect on your weapon and you'll do yourself pretty well. Next up is the pinpoint accuracy type perk here, and what this does is gives you no accuracy and no recoil at all, so you'll be firing very straight and very accurately. There's a little bit of spread though, so it's not completely laser beam accurate, unfortunately. That was just to balance it a little bit. But anyway, we'll move on to the next one. So this is the plasma missile. It fires a missile that explodes in a plasma thing, so it's a pretty neat spectacle to watch, especially since you're used to just the standard frag grenade explosions for the missiles. Alright, here's the plasma seeking perk. So basically it fires plasma projectiles, which are labelled as missiles in the creation kit, and you can actually give them a seeking effect, so you aim down sights to lock onto your targets and you don't have to worry about aiming after that. The plasma projectiles seek out their own target, which is pretty neat. Next up is Protective. This one's more of a defensive little perk, so it adds 150 resistance to energy, ballistic, and rads. It's not listed here because this is not an armor, so you just have to take my word for it, huh? Next up is Quad Shot, which fires 3 additional projectiles. Self-explanatory. Railgun here, so this one does 10 times damage, but at the cost of 1 ammo capacity. And once you get into using it, it actually fires just a Gauss rifle projectile unsuppressed, so yeah, it makes it seem more like a railgun, I suppose. Next up is Rocketing. This one fires rockets just on their own, so that's pretty neat. Next one is Scrupulous. This one does 3 times damage when aiming down sights, but it comes with the penalty of a little bit extra recoil. We won't let you get that much of an advantage without a little bit of extra recoil for your troubles, so we'll go ahead and go to the next one. Subduing. This one gives you a 20% chance to critically hit. I was going to make this 25 originally, but that would just obsolete the overdrive cam, so 20 seems alright. Put this as an automatic weapon for better results. Alright, next up is the Telekinetic perk, and this will make you fire Lorenzo's artifact gun projectiles, which are giant kinetic balls of force. It'll be awesome on a shotgun, trust me. And Tri-Shot fires 2 additional projectiles, a little bit of a upgrade from the quad shot, but not as crazy, I suppose. And another little elemental supposing, it's this Venomous Effect, and basically this is the Poisoner's effect, but I've improved it a bunch. So yeah, it's definitely going to be usable now. So that's it for the legendary effects. Hopefully you use them well, and you can have fun with them. You might notice the weird naming conventions when you're using these weapons. It might call it kneecapper or whatever, but I'm looking to find a fix for that, but there's not a lot of support for Creation Kit around. Tried googling it, everything, but maybe we'll find a fix. Users of PC and Xbox One, they might have a scripting fix for it. I might have to look even harder for PS4, so just bear with me on that. I'll try to get it fixed as soon as possible. Hopefully you enjoy the mod, and if you'd like to request any legendary effects, be sure to leave a comment down there. I'll see what I can do to get to it. I'll try to update this when I get another 20 effects happening, so make sure you put your ideas down below, and you might even see them in the next patch. Thank you for watching, guys.